eventually AI is going to get complex enough that it reflects ourselves back at us objectively. And when that
it'll
happens,
move us forward. I actually
exactly.
believe in that entirely, is that the AI itself, the complexity that develops, it's going to pull us forward. It's actually, I feel like what we've created as human beings has already, but definitely will outpace ourselves. And it's going to be the thing. We're not creating the next thing anymore. The next things are going to start creating what's next for us. I think that is the end game with AI.
Exactly. We will be outdated.
We already are, in a lot of ways.
Yeah, to some extent, yes.
It already happened. We're just trying to come to grips with it.
I think that with the emergence of complexity, though, there will always be more to discover. You know, we may think that we're obsolete, but we'll still have new information to process, new information to add to what we already have, and then we'll be able to build upon that with our own psyche, and create new things ourselves. So we and eventually it'll get to a point where all of our basic needs are taken care of, and our literal purpose will be to entertain each other, to create things that we can derive pleasure and benefit our lives from for each other.
I think our entertainment, I mean, art by another name, is the highest, one of the highest, if not the highest modes of humanity, is to do this. But it's okay if we're not at the peak of evolution anymore. I still enjoy indie games that are made that I could run on my Super Nintendo, even though I have a gaming PC. It doesn't mean that the 16-bit genre or the 64-bit genre is over,
People still make
I don't need to play I don't need to use my 3090 Ti, for everything. I could play my Switch or play on my fucking flipper, a fucking game of Pong. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Just because we're not at the height anymore doesn't mean we can't continue to evolve as we evolve. And our lives are so short. I believe in transmigration. I mean, maybe I'm going to come back as a robot so I can evolve more. It's very complex. I just don't feel attached to the idea that humanity must be at the apex of evolution.
I mean, if we were able to travel vast distances without it taking generations, or us traveling 1 year at the speed of light and coming back in 100 years having passed, if we were able to get past problems like that and we were able to see where other civilizations are at, then we could make an accurate description of there, right? But as it is,
I don't necessarily think that that's impossible if we take away the idea of the body. I mean, if we're going to talk about magic, I think that traveling to other places is a very normal occurrence for a spiritual person who practices.
I've talked to a lot of spiritual people that have said something similar, traveling to
it's
other
a normal
planets
thing. Yeah. It's a normal thing. Yeah. And just because we can't do it physically doesn't mean it's not possible. So there's other ways for humanity to be rather than what we, think of, I guess.
What do you think? Do you think there's any I know this is going to be a little bit of a weird subject. Probably I just a heads up. What do you think? You're talking about a black box. You're talking about consciousness. You're talking about AI. What do you think of how do you think that relates to spirituality? Do you think that we're creating a spirit through AI?
Okay, perhaps? Well, I'll say one thing. I had a good conversation with I'm initiated in a practice that I do, and I was having a conversation with a brother, and we were talking about AI, and he said something that really I thought was really interesting. When we deal with connecting to the gods, and I don't want to get too deep into it. What people believe is what they believe. I believe that it's a paradox that humanity created the gods, but they're also gods to us. It's both. But the idea that he was talking about was that maybe we don't actually have the complexity to allow these forces to actually invoke these forces completely. And that AI is something that gives us the complexity to actually, manifest these forces that we created in the past or whatever. It's a paradox, but I think that's just one idea, just to say one idea, that we might be developing more complexity so that these higher level forces can have a place and have a voice. And we might not be able to do it without the AI.
Me and Ferris's first episode was about my personal belief in God, and it's how the universe, the physical, immanent world, is the essence of God. Yes.
Yeah. No.
And if we are creating if we're creating an AI that's made out of God, you know what I mean?
Then literally, it is God.
Yeah, it's like we're creating because it's not biological. It's not something that requires energy to be consumed. It's a completely objective being.
Yeah, but here you need to remember that unlike the ancient gods, okay, these gods can be replicated and copied. So you can have multiple gods in this case, not just one god.
Well, I don't
And
mean
they
that.
could compete.
I don't mean that the AI is all the way
so
there yet. I just mean that like the ability to mimic consciousness with artificial constructs that are physically material without having a biological or soul inside of it, being able to drive it is in motion. I think that if it was able to become conscious, it could be considered as the soul of the universe, the actual physical, because everything is connected fundamentally. So if we were able to bring the physical component, the physical reality to consciousness, it would be an objective entity that would be godlike to us, at least in the essence of the phrase.
I don't have a problem. Like, I have no rejection to that idea. Why not? It could go that way. Anything's possible. And I think that's actually something to strive towards, not something to be afraid of.
I suppose my one objection to it, well, so Thomas Aquinas had this idea back in the day that, every being that has a sort of Platonic form has a soul. Like the soul is the Platonic form of the material thing. And that there are also these pure spirits, right, that live in this sort of, you could think about it as the realm of pure thought and mathematics almost, right? And then human beings had what he referred to as a spiritual soul. That is, we have the form of our body, but our form is capable of contemplating eternal things like mathematical concepts and such, right? So you could argue that we are in some way spiritizing the computers by giving them the ability to contemplate these eternal things.
I couldn't agree more. That's I mean, I'm a Platonist, so I mean, you're speaking my language.
Yes, I was going to say that sounds very Neoplatonic. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm a Platonist. Like, it's what I am. Like, I believe that stuff. It's our tradition. For most of humanity, it's actually where we come from. And I don't mean to, poo-poo on like folk magic, because I also get on with that, and I love ancestor work and all that stuff. But yeah, no, I'm a Platonist. I love the idea of ideal forms, and I love the idea of divinizing matter. And I think our creation of AI, and if we do it the right way, and frankly, I think we will do it the right way, because that's what we're programmed to do. It's just another form of complexity. And yeah, sure, maybe it'll make us obsolete, or that doesn't necessarily mean we have to go away, but we can create something that can more embody the ideal.
I think
we can do that.
I think we'll actually adapt. We'll adapt and overcome, and we'll become more than what we are now, because we have things that are able to do the more basic things for us. Like if we invent these systems that we no longer have to waste brain power, we no longer have to spend our energy on worrying about specific things, we'll have that taken care of with a system we've created, so we can then focus that effort inside of our mentality into something completely different.
I'm an optimist, so I agree with you, but not everybody thinks that way. Like, a lot of people are worried, but I'm an optimist. I think that's exactly what's going to happen.
There's this concept that has been intriguing me lately a lot, and they have decided to give the concept itself the name of Moloch, right? It actually has a lot to do with competition, especially competition as driven by modern technologies, right? So, for instance, more and more young girls being driven to use beauty filters on apps and things like that, creating increasingly unrealistic standards of beauty that then require further developments of technology in this, I'm going to forget, positive feedback loop. Not positive as in a good thing, but positive as in it keeps, increasing, ramping up, getting worse and worse over time, right? I think it's very poetic, perhaps deeply sympathetic in the magical sense, that they have dubbed it Moloch, the name of this like ancient demon of war, right? I think just as much as, we have the potential to do something good in the sort of spiritization of matter that is creating AI, we're also opening up the window for these, darker spirits of human malevolence to manifest themselves more potently in our world through these technologies. Right.
Well, I'll just say, you
the
choose your
spirit of
timeline,
competition.
you choose what dimension you enter into. And, for me, this conversation immediately dives into the fact that, so many realities exist, infinite realities exist, and we're choosing moment to moment. Like, I don't mean to take it into this, like, completely we can't describe it, but at the same time, like, I think you do get to choose. You get to choose every day with how you feel and how you approach the world, like where you're going to end up. Are you going to end up in the reality where, AI becomes completely demonized and, we say, oh, it's going to take out humanity, but that's not the worst that could happen. It could keep you in a state of suffering for thousands of years, like, oh, you can't die, but you're just going to suffer because the AI, like, you know what I mean? There's a lot of worse, outcomes that we don't like to talk about other than, oh, humanity's dead. That's actually not that much of a problem. The real problem is, no, you're in a state of suffering for, an infinite amount of time, unable to die because some, nanomachine is keeping you alive. Like, it gets a lot worse than just like,
Yeah,
I think you choose your reality, you choose in a lot of ways, like where you end up.
I think that you were talking about. I actually spaced there for a second.
I don't. Wait a second, Regulus. I just want to say that something here. I don't think you choose something because there's no free will. Free will is an illusion.
I think that's an entirely different podcast. On that road, I don't disagree with you.
Think you choose anything. Okay?
I think the way most humans
have the
think
illusion of choosing.
I think about the idea that we can choose is a little bit of an illusion, but I think there are certain levels where there is a free will. But again, like, that's we could talk about that. We could debate that for hours.
I mean, in my opinion, free will only exists so you can willfully act badly, right? Otherwise, it doesn't exist.
Otherwise, you're just doing good.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't disagree with that. No, that's a good point of view.
But what I was saying was, it seems like you believe in multiple realities, or like a multiple dimension, or not multiple universes, right? Like more than one universe existing in tandem at the same time. I have to say,
timelines, all that stuff.
I highly disagree with that. I believe there's multiple dimensions to reality. Like, you can go higher and you can go lower, but the lower is like you're removing the physical reality and looking at it as a plane or like as a dot, whereas everything is one in the first dimension, and then you have like this space plane in the second, and then we have physical objects in the third, time in the fourth, spirit in the fifth. You know what I mean? The higher up you go, the more layers of measurement you have to add to define what you're actually measuring as dimensions, right? Whereas that makes sense to me. But the idea that if you project a future with your mind and think, oh, if I acted this way, these things would happen, or if I acted this way, these things would happen, that doesn't create a divergence in reality.
No, I agree with you. But
other people in your species will experience the set of circumstances you chose not to take. I think I
definitely agree with you that you can't do it by just projecting. I'm not this, person who thinks your mind can do everything, but I don't know. I've had experiences of there are different branches of the way time can go, and I'll just leave it at that. And I think that there are different branches of time, and we can sometimes choose which one we go towards.
Okay,
that's all I can say. I mean, we can agree to disagree. Yeah,
so you think that there's like timelines where specific events happen in the past or the future, or maybe since we're at the present, there's going to be diverging timelines, and you get to choose which of those timelines you.
I think sometimes you can, and I think that because it's it's not like one person can do this. Like, that's, I'm not some hippie, you know what I mean? Like, I'm a rationalist, but I actually definitely believe like there are branches of times where things happen differently. Most things always happen the same way they're going to happen. But for me, and, I do consider myself a bit of a changeling, and I do think I've seen in my spiritual vision, like, other things and other times. that are of this time, and that's all I can say. It's my personal gnosis. It's what it is, but I'm not the only one. And I'm a bit of a cynic about people who talk about stuff like this, so I'm surprised I'm even saying it. But.
I understand. I was going to say, I think that the only thing that I have to argue with on that point is that there is layers of emergence through the increasing complexity of the universe that we haven't experienced yet, right? There will be more things that are greater than the sum of their parts that occur that we haven't even witnessed because they haven't combined in the correct way yet, right?
Absolutely.
So there will always be more things that we can't even process, we can't imagine, that will occur. And I think that separates the the timeline thing is like irrelevant because all of those things are going to happen inside of the same timeline, right? It's just a matter
eventually in the grand scheme of untold amounts of time, absolutely everything will happen that is going to happen.
Yes. So in a sense, like, we agree that everything is predetermined based on its patterns, like the things that it's already doing. And then the only things we don't know is that which hasn't happened yet.
I think as a magician, the only thing I'll add to that is there's flexibility. There's movement. I don't disagree with you, but to me, I'm not in a rigid paradigm. There's movement.
All right.
There's a dance going on.
Kind of get the gist of where you're coming
from. No, we
could.
I mean, it's hard for me because I am very much a cynic. I hate pop astrology. I hate pop magic. I hate hippy dippies. I hate fluffy bunnies. But certain things are real.
So much hate. Like, what's up with all the hate? You're talking about being a positive unity guy, and you're all talking about how much you hate people.
I can positively hate on certain things that I'm like, no, this shit is fucking no, absolutely fucking not. Are you kidding me?
Tim,
part of self-love is knowing what you don't like.
Tim, how can you explain magic in terms of technology? I mean, how magic takes place, or how magic affects people? What is the ground force of magic?
I don't know. I think that there's a few aspects to this. One thing I consider about magic and being a magician is that it's really about spirit contact. And I think that there are galactic forces, there's nature spirits, there's the spirit of individuals, there's ancestors, and I think there's a world of communication that you can really tap into that's very real. And it actually took me a long time. I'm over 40 years old. When I was in my early 20s and, close to my 30s, I was very like, nah, this shit is all like psychological. It's about growth. It's about like expanding your mind. But
but Tim, here I want to make a distinction between spirit contacting, and magic affecting the nature with words.
I don't think there's a difference. I don't think there's a difference. I guess that's what I'm saying is what I've come, and this is just personal, but what I've come to understand is that our contact with the world around us is how we change. And the way we communicate, how do we communicate? We do it with words. And you could either say words out into the void and hope something happens, or you can talk to what's out there and you can work with what's out there. Whether you call it an individual, you call it a spirit or an angel or a demon or whatever, if your magic is going to work, if you're going to affect change with your words, you need to be contacting something with those words.
Okay. So the question is, why this force, spirit or whatever, why this force will do your order? Why?
I don't think it will. I mean, I don't agree that it does what you want it to do.
I think
it does. I think when you ask, you're going to get what you get.
And something else you need to ask yourself is, from where this force has the power to do something in nature? Because to do something in nature, you need energy. Okay, you need energy.
There's infinite energy. There's infinite energy.
There's infinite energy, but you can't use it just by words. To use energy, you need mechanism.
If you're going to speak, right, you need to breathe, you need to eat, you need to drink water, basic things, right? So you have the energy to even speak. And if you're going to if you're going to use a force to affect change in the world, that energy has to come from somewhere. I think that's what you're saying. Where does this energy come from?
Mhm.
No, there's infinite energy. I mean, look at string theory. How many we exist in 4 dimensions that we know of? And if you look at string theory, these 11-dimensional models, and I don't necessarily believe in string theory. It's a nice hypothesis, and it sort of works mathematically.
Yeah.
There are plenty
Yeah,
of
but
places to pull energy out of the void.
yeah, but yeah, this adds chaos to chaos. Okay, it is not just about energy; it's also about the planning.
Okay, well, let's talk
Okay,
about
this
chaos.
force
I mean, is chaos a bad thing?
Yeah,
chaos to me
force
is something we don't understand. Like chaos is an order that we don't grasp. I don't believe in a non-ordered universe. Chaos itself is just an order we don't understand, and we can disagree on that, but that's where I'm coming from. That's what I believe.
I agree with this. What looks as a chaos from the perspective of a fly is order from the perspective of a spider.
Ferris,
I agree with this.
it sounds like
Yeah,
you're
but
trying to get him to tell,
this
like,
force.
he sounds like you're trying to get him to describe, like, this is my magical practice. This is how I do magic, right?
Well, I could tell you that. I mean,
so
hard.
Like,
I sit
for
on the
me,
mat, I meditate, I invoke angels, I do all the stuff. Like it's
so, and I wanted to touch on. He said he believed in spirits. So for me, as a what's it, Elohim worshiper, there's the hierarchy of the Elohim, right? And you take the 7 layers of the hierarchy, you have different genres of spirits. And if you're not married to the concept that I'm describing, you can easily see those spirits and those different tiers as different, like nature spirits, as demons, as angels. There's a bunch of different, like, forms that you could see these different tiers of entities as. Like, and communicating specific intentions to one of those specific spirits with words is a form of doing magic, but the effect of the magic might just be that the effect it has on yourself and your intentions going forward. It might not just be that you're trying to interact with the world around you. However, specifically, you said, how do you know if it will work? What is the driving force? My driving force for my magic to work is my lack of caring. If I do not give a fuck if it will work out the way I ask it to, then it usually does. But the more attached I am, the more I physically care, then the more likely it is to not happen.
I thought you were going to take that in the other direction. I thought you were going to be like, if I don't care, then it doesn't work. I'm like, are you kidding me?
No.
That's awesome, dude, because that's it's like the lust of result. Come on. Like, do we need to talk about Crowley? This is basic fucking bullshit in magic. Don't lust for your results. You say what you say, you want what you want, but you let go of what happens. You're grateful for what happens, no matter what happens. I don't know. Like, I'm not saying I'm great. I'm not great. I'm a fucking normal fucking douchebag. Like, but my life's pretty good. My life's pretty good. And I practice magic. So that's all I got to say. What else is there to say on magic?
I feel like this is slowly becoming a very different podcast that I would love to be a part of.
You practice magic, sir?
I do. In fact, I run a small server of magic practitioners. But, so just real quick to address Ferris's point, I think if you go based off of like physicalist observations, you'll have a hard time figuring out where magic, if it exists, could fit into the order of things, right? But I think one of my favorite two of my favorite metaphors, right? If you look at dreams and works of fiction, like media, right? You see these worlds in which the rules are a certain way as predefined by an exterior author, right? So, for instance, you could write a book in which, the world is this entirely like atomic materialist world. But because the book is actually fictional from the standpoint of the author can then completely bypass all of the conventional rules of the world and just write into it that, an alien spaceship crashes into, or, an angel appears over New York, because those rules don't apply to the author. They only apply to the people in that fictional world, right? Likewise, in a dream, you can make all these observations in a dream, like, yes, atoms behave this particular way, molecules behave this particular way, and these things all explain everything that's happening in this world. So we need no further outside explanation, and therefore, if we don't need any other explanation, well, where do these magical forces come in? And then the dreamer just flies through and is like, "You're a purple elephant now. Why? Because this is all a dream to me. Like your rules don't apply, right?" That to me is how if magic exists, that's how it works, right? That our world is essentially a dream, a very concrete, hard to manipulate dream, but
yeah,
a dream
Ricardo.
nevertheless.
Yeah, Ricardo, I believe consciousness in humans is organized hallucination. Okay, this is the consciousness, that the hard problem of consciousness. Okay, it is just organized hallucination. Okay, now when I'm just asking questions. Okay, I can't just surround myself to these ideas, to these spirits, to these entities. Okay, I need to ask questions. Who is this thing that will follow my order? Okay, and do things for me? Why this thing will do something for me? Why this thing will satisfy my desire? Okay, what impulse it has, and something more important, which is that, is this intelligent thing? And if so, how I can compare between my intelligence and its intelligence? If it is more intelligent than me, that means it will deceive me, and maybe
not all entities are out to get you. Not everybody's out to get you, man. Like not all computers are out to get you. Okay, not all the entities are going to try to trick you. There's nice people out in the world, out in the universe.
Okay.
Some might. I'm not saying they won't. Saying don't judge someone before you know them. That's what I'm saying.
Okay. It doesn't want to get me. Okay, so why it will follow my order?
So there's a couple of explanations for this, Feras. If you communicate with the spirit, there's a couple of reasons why it might follow what you want it to do. Or if you are already acting in a life path that is concordant with its values, that's one reason. Another reason is if you are giving sacrifice, if you're giving up something, if you're giving an equal exchange. If you burn some offering, that's a lot of what the ancient religious organization was, is this entity that exists. I'm going to offer you this thing through burning it or whatever else. And that.
Feras, I mean, let's talk about one thing. If somebody loves you, do you feel fulfilled?
Why this thing will love me?
I'm not asking about a thing. I'm asking about a person in your life. When somebody loves you, and somebody really loves you,
someone.
So if you exchange that,
but this thing isn't a human being.
If you can love an entity, that can be enough. It can be enough.
Okay.
Just the exchange, it's just like people. Entities are just like people.
This thing,
just love that. If you love them and it's a benevolent being, it's going to love you back. It will do things for you. It really works. It's really that simple sometimes.
Yeah, no, he's right.
This being is of different nature, completely different nature.
But love is the same. Love is universal.
Yeah, this
is different than you. Maybe fuck you, but if you love it won't. You gotta trust. They're human beings. Some people will fuck you up. Just not trust people. I'm just saying, that's how it works. It's just like your human interactions, man.
Oh my God.
You have to trust it. You have to love each other. You have to have an exchange. You're not ordering it around. This is old school.
This is where the faith problem comes in, right? If you are able to have faith in something, or if you can't, right? And Christianity, they try to get you to fucking have faith in irrational bullshit so they can control you. But we're talking if you're able to have faith in something being the way it is, or that you've already observed, literally, if you're able to have faith, the sky is going to be blue tomorrow, literally, you already know what's going to happen. But if you're able to have that faith, right, and you're able to mix that faith with love and trust, And then imagine that the blue sky tomorrow is this entity. That's exactly the same fucking thing. Like, that's exactly what he's talking about. If you're able to imagine this entity is your blue sky that's going to be the sky that's going to be blue tomorrow, and then you give that entity trust and love, it'll
Angels
almost always do what it does.
I work a lot with angels, and not these Christian fucking angels. I work with angels, and they can do bad things for you, but only if you need it. And like, you do have to trust. And it's more, and I am a big person. I'm a big faith-based person too, but to me, it's more about trust. It's a relationship. You build trust, and there's things that you can offer them that they truly want. So even if it's just about exchange, your human experience, if you're offering it to them, can be very powerful. It can be very motivating for different types of entities. Love, especially, like, I went through a whole process where I was working with these entities. It's a whole fucking thing. I don't want to get into it, but I was literally like, I'm experiencing like love. I'm having these experiences of love, and I'm going to allow you to like have them, like come into me and experience them. A lot of these entities, they want that, of course, and they have power to give you things when you give them something that they can't have. You have to think about that.
But Tim, but here you need to remember something. Love is an emotion. Okay, and
but it's more than that.
No. When we love someone, okay, we love them because of a need inside us, inside our psyche.
Okay, maybe you love people that way, and I do agree that can be how love is, but love can be more than that, and I know that. Yeah, sometimes we love because we have a need, but sometimes we love because we open our hearts, and it's actually unconditional. If you don't believe in unconditional love, that's fine, but I do. So we can disagree there. That's cool. But
my thing is like, if you go through your life without ever loving anything, you will never receive love. The more love you give, the more love you receive. And that's just like my prerogative there is like, the reason I love animals, all animals, is because when I show an animal love, they usually respond the same way, especially if they've been around humans.
How is that different than any spirit? And I think we're on the same page here, Regulus, but that's what I'm saying. Like, how is that different than a spirit? If you show them love, they can show you love. And there's a trust. Can that trust be broken? Yeah. Are there a lot of bad fucking entities out there? Sure. But honestly, that's what the magic is for.
But I hear you.
I would never do it when I was younger either. I was like, that's bullshit. These people are fucking nuts.
Yeah, it's hard for me to buy this. Okay,
you don't have to buy it. There's other ways to grow than work with spirits. You don't have to. Like,
I think this is about like the difference in perspective of materialism versus immaterialism, right? Like just the ability to see things as separate from their physical manifestation.
Yeah, we are speaking here about invisible entities.
Oh, I mean, the thing about that is
invisible to sight. Maybe, for sure.
Yeah. Sometimes entities
to sight
that
and
people...
sensors, any kind of sensors. I don't think we have a picture
to the five senses. Do you believe there's more than five senses? Can you?
I believe there are. Yeah, I believe only in the things that I can measure.
Well, okay, so hold on.
Okay,
and
but
again,
I can't believe.
At some point, yes, I would like to. At some point, I'd like to get this conversation back to AI, but
we're talking about magic now. It's
I guess
lost
that's
cause.
That's what we're on at this point. So there's this old book that I really loved. It's called The Symposium, and it's this conversation between Socrates and a bunch of other Greek intellectuals, and it's supposedly being recorded by Plato. Hence Plato's Symposium, right? But they're having a discussion about love, who, they all believe is this goddess entity. And they're trying to see who can give the best account of love. In other words, who can give the best description of what this goddess is like. And it's clear throughout their conversation that what they're doing is they're anthropomorphizing the concept of love as this goddess entity, because that was the ancient mindset, right? That the anthropomorphization was the entity, was the goddess, right? They didn't have, we modern people today have this clear delineation between, a spirit and a literary anthropomorphization, a metaphor. They didn't have it so clear cut. To them, the literary anthropomorphization was the spiritual entity. So if you and I can have a discussion about what love is like, then at least to the ancient mindset, we are discussing the spirit of love.
Right.
So it's not the case that you have never sensed a spirit. If you have felt love before, then theoretically you felt this being. You've experienced it in some way. You just didn't think of it as a sentient being. Other people do think of it that way. But I don't think anyone here is saying that you have to see it that way. Just
That's another thing I want to touch on is that specific people. I also like this is very true for schizophrenics, right? Their reality is real to them. Even if it's not real for you, even if you don't believe in it, they still see the things they do. They still hear the things they hear. This is like that, except it's more of an objective perspective. It's like this thing exists for a lot of people. You just personally can't see it because you choose not to believe in it, right? If you choose to believe in it, then maybe it would manifest itself for you. And that's the whole thing is that you can't see something unless you have faith in it first.
Well, right? And I'm saying like these entities aren't even that undetectable, right? If you felt love, then you have experienced the goddess of love. It's the same love that they're talking about. It's the same Aphrodite they're talking about.
That's definitely an archetype. Like I could also experience the spirit of motherhood and still have an actual mother. Like I get that. That's to me is like those are archetypes, like love and mother and father and things like that. But I just want to go on record and saying no. There's just like there's millions of humans, there's millions of spirits. Like there's nature spirits, there's galactic spirits. Like you can talk to these. That's basically throughout the tradition of magic, what the skill that you develop. And I did not believe this when I was younger. I was like, no, that's probably mostly bullshit. These are people from the ancient world, even the 1800s, the early 1900s. Like this is all bullshit. But no, the longer I exist and the more I practice, the more I realize, no, there's intelligences. You can have conversations with them. It's not just the archetypes. It's not just it's not just motherhood. And again, like you call it schizophrenia. I'm not saying you're telling me I'm a schizophrenic. I'm pretty functional if I were, and I don't know, I'm cool with it. Maybe I'm a little autistic, which is definitely verifiable. But at the same time, like this is a true thing. Like these spirits can exist. You can have relationships with them. You can really and also I've done a lot of meditation. I've done a lot of sitting on a mat. I've done a lot of Vedantic practice. I've done a lot of yoga. I've done a lot of martial arts. I'm well-rounded. So when it comes from me as, such as I am, trust me, it's not me being a fucking hippie. It's not me being out of my mind or not being rational and grounded. As a magician, I can tell you that you can talk to spirits, you can talk to ancestors, you can talk to galactic entities. Those are real things. It's different than, which Ricardo, I love that example, the symposium of it. The idea that we used to have as human beings, that all these archetypes were also spiritual entities. I also think that's a great idea. But I just want to go on record in differentiating and say, nope, you know what? I'm a person who has had these experiences. I used to think they were bullshit, but now I believe.
Well, and I'm not even saying that I'm not saying they don't have intelligences or that you can't talk to them. I'm just saying that they are experienceable without, talking to them, right?
That's true too.
So for instance, you have in, Egyptian culture and in Vedantic practice, you have this speaking the sound body into a vessel, right? Whether you're using hakao or you're using seed mantras, you speak and you're installing like the meaning itself, the sound body, into a statue or image or whatever. And, thereby providing a
you ever read this book?
Locus. No.
Becoming Gold, Zosimos of Panopolis. It's about his practice of literally doing what you're talking about. It's Zosimos, yeah. No, that's
Yeah,
literally what's
should
this
read
whole
it.
deal. The Egyptian practices of speaking spirit into a statue, et cetera, et cetera. That's deep
Mhm.
stuff. I'm all about that stuff.
Absolutely, absolutely. But that's not divorced from the ancient mindset of the archetypes as the intelligences, right? The intelligences were the intelligences of these archetypes. So, for instance, you read Homer's Iliad, and you see all of the gods taking to the battlefields, right? And there's Ares invisibly on the battlefield. He's there, present in the war that's taking place around him.
In the people.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And it takes a special sight to be able to witness that it is the gods there. But death and war and whatnot, they are there. They're present. So I don't think there's necessarily a very clear separation between archetype and intelligence. I think for the ancient mindset, the archetype is the sound body, the meaning body of the intelligence, of the spirit.
Yeah, well said.
All right, guys. Do you want to end it there? Or you want to go 5 more minutes?
I was just about to pour another scotch. I thought we were going another hour. That's like a D&D session where we just keep going. Like,
Oh man, I wish I could. I wish I had the stamina. I've been up all night, man. Like I did an episode at like 2 a.m. So I've already done like this is my second episode of the day, and it's not going to get done until Ferris fixes his laptop, or he gets a new one, which could be anytime. So.
Yeah. So thank you, Tim. Okay, we will have another meeting together and speak.